So, let's talk. Where are you at in this work? If you understand what these teachings are pointing to, if you understand the possibility that these teachings make available, the possibility of being at ease, the possibility of being content, the possibility of being able to experience satisfaction, if you understand the teachings and you have an appreciation for the possibility that what you actually are as awareness, which is always available, is an experience of freedom as you compare it to the life you're living as a personality. If the life you're living as a personality has been compared to being in prison. The walls of the prison are the limitations that your mind imposes on you. The walls of the prison are the body, the identification and the belief that you're inside the body. Has the body become a limitation, a prison in which you're experiencing your life? And if that doesn't change, if you don't, through the practices, come to experience yourself as not limited by the body or not being in the body, if that doesn't happen, then when death comes, it will be tragic and difficult. Because if death comes and you haven't experienced the truth about your nature in terms of not being in the body, then you will consider death to be an event in which you perish, an event in which you disappear, an event in which you no longer exist. And given the fact that the mind is programmed to survive, given the fact that your mind is programmed to have you survive as a body and a personality, right? That programming will produce a lot of disturbing and upsetting thoughts and feelings if it's given the feedback from your body and the environment that the end is near. So that's not an experience that you should want to have. But then the question becomes, if you understand that, and if you understand what it cost you to take yourself for the personality and to take yourself for that which is limited by the body, if you understand what that cost you and you're looking and you're willing to be open to see in your everyday life as you're living your life, now how much of the time are you resisting what's happening? How much of the time do you reject what's occurring? How much of the time are you struggling with it? How much of the time are you trying to change it, to get it to work? Whether it's your own psychology, whether it's other people, whether it's the circumstances of your life. If you are willing to really be brutally honest and look at your experience, you will see, that when you resist, when you fight, when you struggle, when you believe that what's happening should be different than it is, that you are the source of your own suffering. Through these practices, you can get to a place where when negative, difficult things happen, you can experience gratitude because the work that you've done is paying off. Right? That's why I'm saying, if you're paying attention to your moment-to-moment life, your everyday experiences, see if you can allow yourself to see how much of the time during the day you're experiencing being at peace. How much of the day do you experience tranquility? How much of the day do you experience that your life is working, that your life is flowing? If you pay attention to that, that will help to motivate you to do the practices and to stay connected to the Dharma, to stay connected to the teachings, and to be interested in deepening your understanding of the teachings, so that you don't, so that you don't become one of the people, as my Zen teacher said last night, who used the talks to get to sleep. One of the things that's important for you to look at for yourself is when you're in these meetings, right? Because a lot of what I say and a lot of what the teachers that teach this say is redundant. It's repetitive, right? There's certain basic teachings that keep being repeated in many different ways, right? So the question is, when you're in these classes, is the way you're being here such that you have a focus of your attention on what's being said to you, that you consider it relevant and important enough that when the meeting is over, you could recall it, right? If you can't, what's happening? Right? If you can't recall what gets said during a meeting in which you're being given the teachings, and the idea, the reason you're being given the teachings is not so you can just accept them on face value. The reason you're being given the teachings is so you could take them, remember them, and then look to see in your life whether there's a match between the truth and what you're experiencing in your life. And you can only do that if you remember the teachings. Yeah? If you remember the phrase, what you resist persists. This is a universal law, right? If you remember that phrase, as you're living your life, are you noticing what you're resisting? If you're not noticing what you're resisting, what good is it? What good is the class if it's an academic experience? If the only thing you're getting out of this is interesting information, you're undermining your own life. You're literally undermining your own life, right? Because what's available through these teachings and practices is an experience of being present for your own life. The experience of being present for your own life in such a way that you recognize the value of your existence. Yeah? Most of us look right past that all the time. Most of us look right past the value of the fact that we exist. Like that doesn't, that's not worth anything. I'm busy paying attention to how much money I have. I'm busy paying attention to, whether my family is showing the right respect and love for me. I'm busy paying attention to the politics, right? So our attention is out there in the field all the time, looking at what we're interested in, looking at what we use to distract ourselves, looking at what we're afraid of, right? Our attention is involved in all that. And so how often do you have the opportunity to experience your own existence and the mystery of that and the beauty of that and the value of that, such that if you were actually present for your own existence, really present for your own existence, right? You'd be like a child waking up in the morning. What's a child waking up in the morning looking forward to? Yeah, they're interested. They can't wait to get out of the bed because they want to play. Right? They're not paying attention to who the president is. That doesn't mean anything to them, right? Yeah. So they're free to experience their innocence. They're free to experience the excitement of being alive. It's still in their experience. The excitement is still in their experience, right? Just to be able to get out there and move around, move their body around, be around other kids, play games, have fun, have fun. One of the Zen teachers that I've studied, he came up with a saying. He said, if it's not fun, it's better left undone. What did he mean? When I first heard that, I thought, well, I guess there's not a lot of things I'm going to be doing then. But that's not what he meant. What he meant, why is it that you're not having fun all the time? Yeah? Why is it that you're not having fun all the time? And the answer to that is because you're neurotic. Yeah? Because you're worried about things that haven't happened and may not happen. And while you're worried about the things that haven't happened and may not happen, you're ignoring what's happening right now. So you're not there for your life. You're not there for your life. I suspect that as you get older, there is a relatively specific time when you shift from being instead of old middle age to old age. There's a time, right? And I noticed in my own experience that the reason that I wasn't up to date with my body's age, right, was because my consciousness has no age. So I kept operating off of that, and then when my body gave me feedback about how old I am, I looked at that and I said, yeah, the body is old.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have to recognize is that this body can't do what it used to do. It can't move as fast. And this mind can't do what it used to do. It can't remember things the way it used to do, right? And so then the question becomes, that's why they say in Buddhism, when they talk about suffering and the things that are inevitable, the things that the Buddha saw when he came out of the castle, the first thing that he saw was an old person, and he said to his guide, "What's that?" And the guide said, "Oh, that's an old man." And he said, "Is that going to happen to me?" And the guy said, "Yeah, it's going to happen to you." Right? Then he saw somebody that was sick, right? And he said, "What's wrong? What's that person?" And had leprosy or something. It was obvious that they were very sick. And his guy told him, that's a sick person. He said, "Is that going to happen to me?" And he said, "Yeah, it's going to happen to you." Then he saw somebody laying on the ground, not moving at all, and people covering them up with a sheet. And he said, what happened to that person? Is that person sick?" And this guy said, "No, that person's dead." And he said, "And that's going to happen to me?" And he said, "Yeah, that's going to happen to you." And that's when the Buddha began his process of trying to find whether there was an answer to these issues, whether there was an answer in terms of, is there any way to get out of this circumstance, being in this human body, living in time, and having to face the inevitables of old age, sickness, and death. And the reason they included old age, sickness, and death in this process is because old age is a time when you are experiencing a loss. It's a loss. It's a loss of vitality. It's a loss of energy. It's a loss of memory. It's a loss of being able to do certain things with your body that you used to do. And so when that happens for many people, they are in denial about it. They struggle with it. They complain about it. They don't accept it. They resist it. They try and stop it. They try and control it, right? And so what the teachings tell us is that if you want to not suffer, then allow things to be as they are, including your body, including your mind, including the politics, including the weather, including your partner, all of it. You either allow things to be the way it is. Now, you have to understand something, that if you think that you can allow things to be the way they are as a personality, you will find yourself suffering more than you ever did. Because the personality cannot allow things to be the way it is. The personality is operating with a program that's based on surviving and having the personality continue to be in existence and to seek whatever it seems will get you what you need in order to be happy. That's the programming that will run. So when that program's running, it's always looking at what's happening and comparing it to what the program feels should be happening in order for the needs that it has to be met. That's all it's doing. Looking at what's happening all the time to see, given what's happening, is that threatening my survival? Is that in my way of getting what I want to be happy? And is that going to interrupt my existence as a personality? That's how it's filtering all the time, right? And if you really look at how that plays out, right? It plays out in terms of a lot of suffering and a lot of neurotic behavior, a lot of resistance, a lot of denial, a lot of distraction. These are the ways that the programming tries to keep you avoiding the reality of life, keep you avoiding what's happening. So that it maintains the crazy idea that somehow you can control what's happening. And even though the evidence keeps giving you feedback about that indicates that you can't, people never give up. People never give up. They still continue to follow the mind in terms of what the mind's presenting, which is unrealistic. It can't be realistic because it's only a program. It's not it's not alive. It can't see what's really happening. It can only take data and process the data and filter that data through the system and then present you with the result of that data after it gets filtered through the system. That's that conclusion, those conclusions and the way things occur to somebody after it gets filtered through the system is what people come and share with me in psychotherapy. The story, right? The story. What's your story? What's your story? Most people's story, if you look at the story, it clearly indicates they're in a position of victim, isn't it? When somebody's complaining, right? They're complaining about, oh, what's happening to me, right? Me, the victim. I'm the victim of what's happening to me. When in reality, when the truth is, you're actually the cause of what's happening to you, because your relationship with your mind is a relationship where you don't question what it's doing because you think the voice in your head is you. So when it tells you, when it gives you an interpretation of what's going on, you just believe it automatically. That person doesn't respect me. Believe it automatically, and then you react to it. Oh, if they don't respect me, then I have to let them know that they're not respecting me and get that corrected. See, that's trying to control the world, trying to control other people. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So if you're going to be in this class and you're going to spend time here and you're going to listen to these teachings, are you listening with an understanding that what you're being given here is an opportunity of a lifetime? It's an opportunity of a lifetime. To wake up in this life is an opportunity of a lifetime, because if you don't wake up in this life, the body will have been born and died, and you will not have ever been in your life. You will only have experienced your mind. You only have experienced the thought process. You will never have been in the world. On the other hand, if you take these things seriously and you do the practices and you make it your business to learn the teachings so you can use the teachings you've learned to apply to your everyday moment-to-moment life and see the difference between that and what the truth is. See the difference between that and what the truth is, so that you can start to realize what it cost you. What it cost you to live your life in your head. What it cost you not to be present to your own life. If you start to see what it cost you, that'll motivate you to want to take these teachings and live these teachings out, to have these teachings allow you to practice meditation so you can experience your true nature and have an understanding that that experience is always available to you, so that if you continue to do the practice, it becomes possible for you to start to get excited about just being alive instead of what's happening. So how can you forward the action? That's the influence, that's the conditioning, the cultural conditioning. You know, the conditioning of all the people the consensus conditioning. Everybody believes that what they think is the truth is the truth. That's the conditioning. And it's not the truth, that's why it doesn't work. Right? But the collective reality of human beings operate from the understanding that what they believe to be true is actually the truth. And if you talk to them about these teachings, they'll say you're crazy. The reason that they're not here is because they know who they are, and they know what's true, and they know what's real, so why should they come here? They're busy trying to change all that. And it's not going to happen. So you have to look, you have to ask yourself, you know, if this makes sense to me, if this resonates with me, you know, resonance or if something resonates, it's like a tuning fork, right, that's vibrating, right? And we know that if you have a tuning fork that's vibrating at a certain frequency, and you have another tuning fork that is separate from it, it will start to vibrate at the same frequency. Right? So that's one of the ways this works. It's why Paul Hederman says, "I'm not talking to you. That'd be a waste of my time." right? Because you're not interested in this conversation. Your mind will bring up what ifs, or bring up contentious questions, like, "Good, yeah, but I, I know what I'm doing." You know, the mind will bring up contentious issues and contentious questions, right, to challenge whether this is true or not. So you have to ask yourself, you know, if you're here, and the idea here is for who you really are to recognize itself out of these teachings, right? If that's why you're here, to recognize who you really are, do you look to see? Do you look to see? Because if you just take these teachings as a belief system, the way they present it in religion, right, it's not going to work, just like the religion doesn't work. You have to take these teachings and be able to understand them sufficiently enough to put them to the test in your own life. To see, is it true that the voice in my head isn't me? Let me look. Is awareness my true identity? Let me look. And if you do look and you see that for yourself, and if you do pay attention to the mental activity and you recognize how it's causing you suffering, then that's not believing anything I say. Right? Then the process is your process. Then it's your process. Then you have to take responsibility for what you're doing and what you're not doing, and whether or not you're bringing these teachings into your everyday life and practicing them where it matters. Where does it matter? It matters in your relationships with the people close to you. It matters in your relationship to yourself. It matters in terms of your perception of life itself. It matters in terms of your relationship with your mortality, with death. It matters in relationship to everything that's happening every day, the things that are challenging experiences that you have to deal with. Can you be in your true self? Can you remain grounded in your true nature when you're challenged and you're presented with the circumstances that are inevitable in life? If you're going to be brutally honest about that, you have to admit that you're not. How can I say that? I can say that because it takes a passionate commitment. It takes practicing meditation every single day without fail. It takes an interest in these teachings that's motivated and driven by your understanding that without living consistent with the truth, your life will not work. Without living consistent with the truth, you will not be happy, you will not be content, and you will not have peace. If you really get that, how can you not have this be the most important thing in your life? Because without understanding the truth and without practicing the practices that allow this truth to get realized, right, your life's not going to work. You have to allow yourself to get that. If you don't get that, you will continue to be a detriment. You're a detriment to your own well-being. If you're undermining your own well-being and you're undermining your own peace of mind, and you can allow yourself to see that, then that may be what's necessary to motivate you. Or you can wait like a lot of people do, wait until something happens that freaks you out so sufficiently that you're so shocked and so beside yourself that you can't deal with it at all. Wait till that happens and then come to the class. Maybe then you'll take it more seriously. Do you understand? Does it have to be that way? You know, do you have to be kicking and screaming into heaven?